Welcome back to the MOOC course on corporate social responsibility. My name is Aradhana Malik and I'm helping you with this course. And today in this lecture, we are going to talk about the models and systems of corporate governance. We've been discussing corporate governance in detail. We've discussed various things regarding corporate governance. Today we are going to talk about the models and systems of corporate governance. How is corporate governance happening in different parts of the world through different philosophies, etc. So let's see what we have for you here. Models and systems of corporate governance. Some systems of governance that are being followed in different parts of the world or that have been found to be useful are the Anglo-Saxon model of governance, which has then formed the basis for the UK model of governance. Then we have the Latin model of governance, we have the Ottoman model of governance, the African model of governance, German model of governance, and the Japanese model of governance. So you can see that almost the entire world, except for of course Australia, has been covered. We will cover Australia in one of the following lectures as to how things are happening there. So I've tried my best to give you as wide and as diverse an overview of how corporate governance is happening in different parts of the world. Okay, so what is the Anglo-Saxon model of governance? It is found on the rules which must be codified and can therefore be subject to a standard interpretation by the appropriate adjudicating body. So there's a clear, strict structure in which, according to which the rules are made, and the rules are made, and then according to those rules a strict structure is made, and everybody understands those rules and they are interpreted in the same way by the people who are going to implement those rules. Governance, on the other hand, is concerned with the processes and administrative elements of governing rather than its antagonistic ones. So governance is concerned with the processes. So the governance is found on rules. Governance is related to the processes and administrative elements of governing. So it doesn't concern the antagonistic elements, but the processes and the elements of administration. Shareholders, according to this model, shareholders appoint directors who in turn appoint managers to run the company. So according to this model, people who own the company, who own the shares in the company, then appoint directors. Then they find people who can they appoint their representatives. So and then they appoint managers to run the company. Okay. Now the UK governance model proposes that the company is a legal entity which is separate from its owners. So it's a legal entity, it is governed by the law, it is governed by the law and policies of the land. The power to govern the company is derived from the ownership. As to how much control you have over the company is a function of how much of the quantum of stakes you own in the company, or the measurable investment that you have in the company. So what part of the company do you own in terms of shares and assets is what gives you, is directly proportional to the power you have over the way the company runs. The company exists in perpetuity since its shares may be transferred. So it's not as if the company is, the ideal goal is to, the shares are not person specific. The shares can be sold and they can be transferred, and so the ownership may not be limited or may not be restricted to a person, but the ownership is decided by the people who have, by the number of shares. So it's not the other way around. The board oversees the running of the company and reports regularly to the members on the stewardship of their investment. So the board is just a caretaker. The board is just looking after the interests of the people who have invested in the company, and the board oversees, they look after, they supervise how the company is run. They make sure and they manage the running of the company. They put policies and procedures in place to appoint managers to run the company, and they oversee how, or they supervise how the managers are doing their work, and then they report regularly to the members on how they have taken care of the investment of the people who have invested in the company. Independent auditors appointed by members report on whether the financial statements show a true and fair view. So auditors, what is the job of an auditor? The job of an auditor is to find out whether the reporting is accurate or not, whether there are any gaps in the way things are done. So they just report, they go through the paperwork and find out and confirm the accuracy of reporting, and that in turn is that represents the accountability of an organization. So independent auditors are appointed. They are not from within the company, they are from outside, and they are not connected to the company. They are paid for going through the records and finding out if everything is in order, or if anything has been missed or misrepresented. Okay, so this is the model. Members appoint independent auditors. The auditors report to the members, the people who own the company. The members have the power to govern the board of directors. The board of directors has a working relationship with the independent auditors. Now, the business is connected to suppliers and creditors, customers, providers of non-equity finance, and employees. So the board of directors oversees the business, which in turn has these stakeholders. Okay, so this is the UK governance model, which is an offshoot of the Anglo-Saxon model. So the members and independent auditors are here. They have a working relationship with the board of directors. Members have the power to govern the board of directors. Independent auditors report to the members. Board of directors are connected to the independent auditors. They facilitate their work. They help them find out if everything is in order, and then the members appoint the auditors, and board of directors oversees the business and reports the working of this business to the members. This is the UK governance model. Okay, the next one is the Latin model of governance. It is based on the fact that extended families are associated with all other family members and therefore feel obligated, and older members of the family are deemed to have more wisdom and therefore assume a leadership role because of the respect accorded to them by the other family members. As a consequence, there is no real need for formal codification of governance processes. There is no need to put the governance processes in writing, and the system of adjudication does not need to be formalized. It works very satisfactorily on an informal basis. So the Latin model of governance is really about the extended family networks. It's about families, it's about the extended network that is there. It's about governing the business as one would look after the family. Okay, so that is the Latin model of governance, where you assume that your family it's like a family, and the older members of the family are automatically they become leaders. And so it's like looking after your extended family, and they don't feel the need to put formal measures, formal codes of running the business in place. You know who's reporting to whom. Who's reporting to whom is a function of the status that you have in the family, and also of the age or how long you've been a part of the family. So the senior you are, your age and your connection and number of children you have in the business will probably govern how much control you have in the business or on the business, sorry. So that is the Latin model of governance. Okay, next is the Ottoman model of governance, according to which all parties must be fully aware of the risks attendant on a particular course of action and be accepting of equal liability for the outcomes, good or bad. So this governance system was effectively a form of patronage which operated in a hierarchical manner, but with systems and procedures being delegated in return for the benefits being shared in an equitable manner. So it's a devolved form of governance that operated in Asia, Europe and Africa. This is the system which is like, if the benefits, your position in the organization or in that hierarchy depends on the benefits that are coming to you, or all parties are equally concerned about the risks, and they are equally aware of the risks that are going to that are coming with a particular course of action. So they share the risk and they share the reward. So the hierarchy is not very clearly defined, and the systems and procedures are clearly defined, but the hierarchy is not very clearly defined, and both the risks and the benefits are shared equitably by the people who are running the business. Okay. The next model of governance is the African model of governance, which is again very similar to the Latin model of governance. Here the governance takes place through networks, kinship, tribal membership, and shared belonging to various networks. So it's not only about the family, it's not only about how many children you have or who is looking after the business, it's who you are connected to, and the connections and the salience of those connections will in turn determine where you are in the governance structure. This is based on a network of weak ties which are based upon social interaction around a commonality of interests and upon shared memberships rather than based on friendship. So depending on how much interest you have in the organization, and depending on how common your interests are, it will be decided automatically, implicitly, whether you are a part of the core governing body of the organization or whether you are outside it, and thereby you will know whether what kinds of risks and benefits are coming to you, and how much control you have over the running of the organization. So it's not about family, it's similar to the Latin model, but it includes other network ties also. So it's like a network of weak ties that are based primarily on the interest you have in the organization. Okay. The next one is the German model of governance. Now, according to the German model, the supervisory board has no executive power over direction or executive action, but it exercises its authority by the right to appoint, approve, or remove the management board. So the board of directors will not be, they don't have a say in what the managers do, but they have the right to appoint, approve, or reject the managers who are looking after the organization. The accountability role is fulfilled by a representative membership of the supervisory board elected by shareholders and employees. So the people who are connected to the organization then put one of their people, they elect a representative and or several representatives, and those become members of the supervisory board that looks after the appointing, approval or removal of members of the management board. Supervisory board cannot take part in active management of the company, they can only find people to do this work for them. The management board must report to the supervisory board at regular intervals on matters of policy, profitability, the course of business, turnover, the state of the company's affairs, and any transaction of significant importance for the company. Okay, so the management board, the responsibility of the management board is to do their work as well as efficiently as possible and report on what they have done to the supervisory board. So supervisory board is truly a supervisory board, they are just overseeing the operations, and the management board reports to them on matters of policy, profitability, the course of business, the turnover, how much money they are making, the state of affairs, and any other transaction of importance to the organization. Okay. And this is what the German governance model looks like. Okay. So you have the supervisory board here, there is a representative membership from the shareholders, there is a representative membership from the employees. The supervisory board supervises the management board, and they in turn look after the interests of employees, customers, creditors, and they are in touch with the auditors. So the management board is what really does all the work, they just report to the supervisory board, but the supervisory board controls the existence of the management board. Okay, all right. Japanese governance model. According to this model, the banks frequently used to own shares in companies and were often one of the largest shareholders of a public company, and as a result were involved in major investment decisions of the company. So the banks were the financiers, and they in turn had a say in how the company did its business. That is not the case with other governance models. But in Japan, since the banks were giving the money to the organizations, in terms of loans or whatever, and so they were the ones who had a say in how the organization was doing its business. There is a disconnection between shareholders and the board. The disconnection between shareholders and the board has led to management and the board becoming fused, with all board members being insiders in the sense that they are managers as well as board members. So in the Japanese governance model, the shareholders were the one who were running the business. So they actually elected the board, and from among them, and they had a say in how the management did its business. So their roles became fused. Okay, so they were managers as well as board members. Excuse me. The informal information flows which result from the role of insiders and the lack of influence of shareholders means that there is less need to communicate information via the corporate report or employee reports than is the case in other countries. So there's a lot of informal information flowing. Why? Because the people who have invested in the company are also the ones running the company. So there's a lot of networking, there's a lot of information that is flowing informally. With the result, the need for formal reporting has really not been there. Okay, so this is what, and the audit part, the audit consisted of two types of audit. One was the statutory audit. Statutory auditors are responsible for auditing both the financial statements and the operations of the company, that is monitoring the activities of the directors in the discharge of their duties and ensuring that no fraud or illegal acts take place. Accountant auditors' role is to audit the company's financial statements only. So statutory auditors look after everything, they make sure that the paperwork is accurate, they make sure that the activities are in line with the law of the land, they make sure that everybody is doing their work the way they should be doing it, and no fraud or illegal activities take place. Now accountant auditors' role, what do accountant auditors do? They go specifically into the financial statements of the organization and they find out if everything is in order. Okay, and this is what the model looks like. Now the board of directors here, banks could be among the board of directors. Representatives of the bank may be represented or may find a place in the board of directors. There could be independent accountant auditors who could find a place in the board of directors, but they are constantly in touch. I'm sorry, the auditors may or may not be. They may not be in the board of directors, but they are responsible to the board of directors. The statutory auditors are also responsible to the board of directors. So these are constantly in touch. Banks find a place here in the board of directors. The shareholders find a place in the board of directors, and in the business, banks may also be shareholders because they are investing money. So these lines are confused, they're fused. Banks and shareholders and board of directors could find some common members. Then the board of directors oversees the business, so employees, suppliers and creditors and customers. But then there is a lot of informal information flowing here, over here. Okay, so the need for a formal reporting system, for a formal code, regarding the governance of the organization was not really found to be necessary. Now, out of all these models, the one that is still in place, the one that is still finding a place in most organizations that are insisting on accountability is this one, the UK governance model. And this is something that you will find in many places. This is something that you will find people following in many places, where there are clear divisions of the roles of various stakeholders in the organization, and there are clearly listed codes, there are clearly defined codes which are interpreted in the exact same manner or as similarly as possible by different people connected to the organization. And this is something that is really finding a place in many other places, but then that does not mean that the other models are not in place. They are also in place, they are just in place in different pockets. And there is these, as you can see, these models may have come out of the different cultural differences in the way the organizational cultural differences in the way organizations are run, which is again a function of the social culture that these organizations are based in. So different countries, different cultures, different ways of thinking in turn influence the way the organizations govern their business, they run their business, and that in turn has a bearing on the way the world views them, on accountability, on the confidence their different kinds of people have in them. Now this may not be true for or this may not apply equally across all cultures, and that is why I have a piece of homework for you. I have noticed that in the past, when I have given some homework to people, some students are really taking the homework seriously. So some of these lectures were recorded before the course began, and now I've seen a little bit of the course running, and it's very heartening to see that some of you are taking the homework very seriously. So seeing that, I'm giving you some more homework. Now your homework is that after you listen to these lectures and you understand what is being talked about here, I would request you to go through the descriptions of these models, go online, find out more about these models, and then discuss on the forum the following: the similarities and differences between these models. Find out how similar or how different these models are from each other. Find out which cultures they are applicable to, the appropriateness of these models for various types of organizations in various social cultures also. So I'm adding that part here, okay, and I'll add that on the slide also. Find out how appropriate these models are for various types of organizations, for various cultures, the appropriateness of these models keeping in mind the social fabric of rural and urban India. Which of these models would find a place in Indian organizations and why? Why would a particular model be preferred in Indian organizations, and especially which of these models would be preferred in the organizations in India that are based in rural areas, and which of these models would find would be applicable to organizations in India that are based in urban areas, and which of these organizations would find a place in India that are multinational. So all of that, and find out how culture and corporate governance go hand in hand, and that is your homework for this after listening to this particular lecture. So that is all we have time for in this lecture, and please do the homework, please go through it. It's going to be very interesting for you. If possible, find examples. It is not necessary that the German model of governance would be applicable only in Germany or would be adopted by organizations only in Germany. Maybe it's being adopted in other places also, and that is where your interest in this topic would come in handy. So if you listen to this and you find something, please go out and explore, and then maybe add it to the forum. Also, please look at your own organization and see which model have they adopted. Have they adopted any model at all? If yes, which of these models have they adopted, and why have they adopted it? Have they found it useful or not? So that is what I would really like you to do on the forum. And that is all we have time for in this lecture. We will continue with some more discussion on corporate governance in the next class. Thank you very much for listening.